Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm a representative of the Church of Unitology. Have you heard of us? Oh, that's okay if you haven't. Well, at our core, we follow the teachings of our founder, Michael Altman. Years ago, the mysterious black marker was unearthed, and Altman was one of the first people to witness its majesty. You see, the black marker is a divine artifact. It is the source of life itself, holds the promise of life everlasting. The marker tells us that after death, those who believe shall be made whole. These miserable individual lives will end, and we will be reborn in glorious, unified convergence for the rest of eternity. Michael Altman understood this, and revealed the marker's message to the world before the governments of Earth assassinated him and covered the truth up. We have church records detailing this secret history that I am sure you would be interested in. Maybe someday you could even read the inscriptions we have of the marker itself. Not convinced? Well, that's okay. The truth is revealed in different ways for all, Altman be praised. Maybe you'd like to hear about the Necromorph's wager. It's just a silly name, don't worry. Do you like betting? I'm sure you do. Well, did you know that every day of your life so far, you've been betting eternity and you've been losing? It's not too late. Let me show you. There are two possible truths about Unitology's beliefs. Either they describe something that does exist in truth or doesn't exist. Following that, you can choose to believe in Unitology's cause, help our mission, or you can not believe and carry on in your normal life. If you don't believe and our truth is not real, then you live your current life and you die and dissolve into the black sea of nothingness. However, if we are right and you don't believe us, don't help us, you are hurting us. You are fracturing humanity further from convergence, and when it happens, you will be cast aside, forsaken. When the rest of us ascend, you will be left behind as a mere dreg in this dusty, empty plain. If you choose to join our cause, but we are wrong, well, you live a more restricted life, which you may see as bad, but it's a life of community and comfort. And lastly, if you choose to believe, to forward our sacred mission and we are right, you will obtain eternal pleasure and transcendent bliss in the converged state of unified humanity. We will be made whole. Let's say that the marker's truth doesn't actually exist with probability 1 minus p, and exists with probability p. Don't be scared. The math will be quite simple, I promise. I'm sure you like your current life, so let's say that outcome is worth 10. Being left behind, let's say negative 50, because once you witness our convergence, you will know the salvation you have lost. If we're wrong, but you join us, you lose your life, but at least it feels meaningful. Whatever, we'll say negative 5. We Unitologists are nothing if not fair. After all, we are all one. And I'm sure you can agree that an eternity of transcendent unified pleasure is a reward that can only be captured by infinity. If we calculate the value of disbelief, you can expect to get 10 minus 60p, which can only ever approach 10 as p goes to 0. For belief, though, as long as p isn't 0, you can expect infinity. Even if the odds are vanishingly small, the reward of convergence is so overwhelmingly good that you simply have to join Unitology. I can even take it a step further, Altman be praised. Let's generalize. Say v1, v2, and v3 are elements of the real numbers, and none equal positive infinity. So they are finite numbers, or can even be negative infinity if you really want them to be. All we keep is infinity for a true belief in the marker's truth. Then you can see that no matter what those values are, they simply can never outdo the infinite reward of convergence. Under all circumstances, you should submit to the divine truth of the marker and make us whole.
Hey, what are you doing in here?
Oh crap. Sorry about that. I don't know who the hell that was. What is this? The Necromorph's wager? Oh no, this won't do at all. This video is about Pascal's wager. We have to completely change this. Okay, there we go. So yes, as that very strange person seems to have explained, the presence of infinity in the true belief outcome makes it to where the values of the other outcomes don't matter, and the same is true with the probability, as long as it's positive. It gets even more definitive though. In most Christian theologies, hell is similarly infinite, so it warrants an infinite value just as much as heaven. As some users pointed out in the comments of my last video, it's possible that the pain of hell is also infinitely worse than the pleasure of heaven, making the true motivator for the wager be the aversion to hell. The argument actually works the exact opposite way too. As long as hell is negative infinity and the other three are finite values with a positive probability, you should always believe. Why am I going over this again when I just made a video about Pascal's wager? Well, thankfully, I got a lot of engagement on that video, and almost all of it was positive. A few people brought up that I didn't use infinite values for Pascal's wager, when I really should have, because the true argument relies on eternities to have its original force. And this is a totally fair criticism. I chose to not use infinities, but I did not explain why at all in the video, so it looked like I made a big mistake there. This is made even worse when two of the results I have only work without infinity. Who cares about belief updating? As long as P is still positive, which it can never truly not be, then infinity still dominates. Who cares about life choices? As long as every value but the infinities are finite, then it doesn't matter, infinity still dominates. So yeah, this was a very fair criticism, and I'm glad the commenters brought it up. So it looks like I made a big mistake here. Why did I even choose to ignore infinity? Was I stupid? Was I trying to strawman Pascal? No, Pascal does that well enough on his own. The problem occurs when you try to do game theory with infinities, and I will illustrate this with two simple examples, and then I'll move on to show that even in its strongest form, powered by infinity, Pascal's wager collapses under its own weight. First, let's revisit the problem from my last video on the topic regarding the possibility that you might choose to believe in God, but ultimately be unsuccessful. We'll be keeping all the same primitives from the Necromorph's wager above, but change hell to negative infinity, and again recognize a 1/3 chance that you are unsuccessful in your beliefs. So with probability 2p over 3, you choose to believe, God exists, and you're successful, and then you get to go to heaven, obtaining a positive infinity for a reward. And with probability p over 3, you choose to believe, God exists, but you're unsuccessful, leading to hell and negative infinity. Calculating the value of disbelief, we again get negative infinity. When calculating the value of belief, however, we immediately come upon a problem. Infinity plus negative infinity. Your first reflex may be to say that it equals 0 or something of the sort, but mathematically this is undefined, so unfortunately I can't define a definite value for the value of belief. And crucially, even though the value of disbelief is literally negative infinity, it is not legitimate to say that undefined is in any sense greater than negative infinity. That would be to define it somehow. Okay, weird case maybe. Let's turn to the original wager. In the last video, I introduced a hypothetical scenario where it was discovered through some ancient scrolls that maybe the deity in question was actually the evil part of a dualistic religion, so that belief in the deity leads to hell and disbelief leads to heaven. Let's add that column to the chart. Now let's say that within a few days, it's revealed to be a complete hoax. Some extremely meticulous but disaffected grad student forged the documents just to shake up the world for a few days. Begrudgingly, you go home and make the probability of that state of the world 0 for your at-home Pascal's wager matrix. Just to check, you run the usual calculations, and there's a problem. 0 times infinity is undefined, and undefined plus anything is also undefined. And even if the probability wasn't 0, you run into the exact same calculation problem as just outlined. There's a crucial thing to note here. In general, these payoff matrices with normal payoffs would be completely outcome equivalent. This means, in general, facing either Christianity or not is the exact same as facing Christianity versus not versus any number of 0 probability religions. With infinity involved, this becomes mathematically intractable, So even if you're pretty sure that all other religions are definitely false, and really you should be if you're approaching the original wager rationally, it will always fall victim to this problem. Really, this underlines the entire issue with including infinities. Infinity is not a number in the usual sense, it's a tool. One cannot perform the usual operations on it like you can with any other number. Even the clear calculations I showed above are a little suspect due to that. One could maybe bolster this slightly with some incorporation of the varying cardinalities of infinity, where some infinities are greater than others, but as we go on, this approach will, if even possible, succumb to the same exact problems. However, if someone wanted to try this, that would admittedly be very interesting to see. But okay, I'm not blind. I'm well aware of how impotent of an argument this is. This is just merely why I chose to not work with infinities. Obviously, this is more of a mathematical problem. There's a clear sense in which we should intuitively be able to navigate the above problem, even if in formal mathematics they don't make sense. Sure. Let's look at a few further examples while ignoring these very formal problems. First, let's flip the script once again as we did in the last video. You turn Pascal's wager back on the evangelist, once again choosing a similar reward-punishment binary religion. I chose Heaven's Gate here, just because it's a little bit shocking. Should the evangelist join Heaven's Gate? Of course they should, it's not even a question. Those infinities are quite compelling, aren't they? Okay, what about the problem of choosing a denomination from a list of n distinct to the point of heresy denominations? If you calculate the values of belief and disbelief, which I won't show here, you will automatically run into the same problem above. However, you will also see that even if you somehow define the values, you cannot make a good decision. Sure, you should believe in Christianity, but in which denomination? Might as well flip an n-sided die. And truly, nearly every further objection I leveled at Pascal's wager last time still fully stands. The problem of different religions? Unsolvable. How do we even know about the afterlife? We don't. So even adding infinities, that redoubt of Pascal's, is subject to doubt. And yeah, this is still a category error. You cannot assign probabilities to this problem in any meaningful way because it's just something outside of experience and empiricism, or even any conceivable data-generating process. And don't just take my word for it, I'll show it to you. I'm going to outline something I call the ultimate wager. This is meant to show the logic of Pascal's wager in its purest form. There has been no narrowing down, no biasing towards any religion. As a rational actor, you have to acknowledge that truly, we have no genuine way of knowing what religion is true through rational means. Realistically, we can't even say with confidence that the religions we know as humans even fully index the true scope of possible religious belief. We may even be completely wrong, while some planet in the Andromeda galaxy holds the real religion. We'll think about it like this. Let alpha be the set of all possible afterlife/religious structures. When I say logically possible, I mean purely that there lies no internal contradictions. The structure of the afterlife described is internally consistent. It obeys the law of non-contradiction. These afterlives could be basically the same, save for one atom being out of place. The color of a blade of grass is a single RGB value off. You blink out of existence every 47 seconds. God occasionally greets you with a cheeseburger from McDonald's, etc. If you can think of it, it's included in this set. And even if you can't think of it, it still might be in this set. From what I just outlined above, I'm sure you can agree that this set is unimaginably large. We will come back to that. Similarly, we let beta be the set of all possible belief systems or salvation structures. Functionally, this basically indexes every single possible variation of a human or non-human life possible. Think about it for a second and convince yourself that this is also very large. Just a note here, we will assume that whatever the belief system is, however complex or labyrinthian it may be, we are always successful in pulling it off. As long as it's logically possible, we do it, even if it's physically impossible. In describing these two sets, we also necessarily avoid the criticisms of Christianity centrism that some commenters brought up. Everything both known and unknown, as long as logically possible, is within either of these sets. We have the payoff function v that maps the product of alpha and beta to the reals, unionized with infinity and negative infinity. This already seems reductive due to the sheer complexity possible in both belief structure and afterlife structure, but let's roll with it. Now, alpha is definitely uncountable. By countable, I mean it in the mathematical sense, that it is larger in cardinality than the set of natural numbers. The real numbers, for example, is a set that is uncountable. The size of that set is larger than the size of the set of natural numbers. It might seem strange to say this, but mathematics can, and has for a long time, dealt with varying degrees of infinity as totalities rather than numbers, and is reasonably capable of comparing them. Alpha contains at least the same degree of gradations possible as the reals, if we think about mere positions of atoms and wavelengths and all sorts of things. Representing the possible states of the world via a matrix requires countability. It requires you to be able to sort one outcome into the first place, a different one into the second place, and so on. Mathematically, there needs to exist some bijective function mapping alpha to the natural numbers. But since Cantor proved that such a function does not exist for the natural numbers and the reals, it definitely doesn't exist for alpha either. I would contend that alpha is actually much, much larger than the real numbers. In fact, it's pathologically large. Imagine any collection of afterlives in the set, and you're immediately confronted with the fact that there is a larger set that also contains some analogous thing to a power set for afterlives. Alpha, as the full collection of possible afterlives, in totality, contains its own expansions. We will come back to this. First, let's illustrate this argument concretely. Here is a matrix. To actually use the representation, we must list out structures from alpha in an innumerable bijective manner as seen here. The same can be said for beta. Concretely, n and alpha must be the same sides. The natural numbers must index both alpha and beta, but we know this isn't true. Thus, there is no matrix representation. Okay, whatever. This isn't even my main point here, so let's just plow forward and assume there is some more accurate representation possible while looking at the matrix representation for simplicity's sake. We've listed all the afterlives, all the belief systems, and all the associated payoffs. The immediate next question is, what is the probability of each outcome? In order to navigate this problem, we need to be able to assign some values to that, at least theoretically, so we could assess payoffs. But we can't. As I said before, alpha is pathologically large. In fact, even the word large just doesn't even seem to get at just how big it is. The word size seems to operate on a different dimension that alpha has already surpassed. As I said before, imagine some collection of afterlives, alpha, and you must immediately confront the fact that there's a larger set that contains that set's elements along with different variations and collections of them, only governed by non-contradiction. But then, that bigger set has its own associated bigger set, and so on and so forth. Here is Brassier in Nihil Unbound on the topic. Thus, while the frequentalist assumes that these possibilities can be fixed as a numerical totality, M insists that the concept of totality has no purchase in this context. Not because we cannot quantify the infinite, since we clearly can, but because we cannot totalize it. Given any set of logically possible outcomes for any event in the world, regardless of whether the set is finite or infinite, there will always be possibilities not comprised within that set, and hence another bigger set which comprises them. And this non-totalizable continuum of logically possible outcomes can never be hypostatized in the form of a world. But if there is no set of all logically possible outcomes, it makes no sense to call any one set of logically possible outcomes more or less probable than any other. Alpha is completely open-ended. It has no size, no volume, no totalization. Thus, it is completely non-measurable, and probability as a measure cannot be assessed onto alpha. You can try to protest and restrict the set to smaller sets that are measurable, as if that simplifies the problem at all, but that is completely arbitrary. There is no true basis to restrict the set of outcomes to a workable one. Even afterlives described by human religions as a restriction would be arbitrary because it denies the possibility that we haven't actually discovered the true religion yet. If you appeal to some sympathy the divine world must have for humanity, such as knowability or comprehensibility or discoverability, you have already artificially restricted the set. No religions can be meaningfully said to be more likely than any of the others. If you try to choose a religion rationally, you are invariably, whether knowingly or unknowingly, stuck playing a game of pure chance, rolling that n-sided die and choosing according to that. Or, like most people, you let the universe choose for you by randomly instantiating you in some cultural environment. Which brings me to a point I must address here. I know I'm focusing on Christianity, but that's a cultural accident and function of circumstance, while also due to the origin of the wager. In the context of this argument, I don't believe Christianity is more or less likely than simulation theory, or Zoroastrianism, or the alien god of... However, Christianity is the most salient in terms of evangelical attempts to me, and to my audience, so it does get looked at more. Now, as happy as I am with this argument, I'm well aware of how non-impactful this may seem to you, the viewer. Really, my main goal with all of these arguments in this video, and in the last video, is to try and argue for a non-rational view of religion. It's a realm orthogonal to science, to reason, to empiricism, and the like. Spirituality may not be, but religion certainly is. It's a deeply experiential, phenomenological problem that can't be meaningfully reduced to a logical formula. Try looking at rational arguments for a religion, and the amount of holes in their logic would make Swiss cheese blush. This is not a dig at religion, this is a skepticism about a rational basis for religious conversion. And why not admit that it's not rational? Isn't that what faith is really all about? In R. Scott Bakker's second Apocalypse series, we are introduced to the Consult, a collection of vile aliens and genocidal sorcerers. They have each had very convincing experiences of their own assured damnation, and thus worked to cull the world's population down to 144,000, which would shut the world off completely to the outside, saving their wretched souls from eternal hell. To me, this struck as a version of Pascal's wager taken to the extreme. For the Consult, they are convinced by their analogous version of the wager, the inverse fire, that damnation is unavoidable, and thus hell is the primary motivation. And what actions does it motivate? Nearly every atrocity one could possibly imagine, and some that I really hope you can't imagine. Their goals aren't pure nihilistic chaos, it's their own twisted version of salvation. They are reasonably certain that their fate on the outside, or the spirit world, is guaranteed if they don't commit these atrocities. Not doing this means serving as carrion for the deific scavengers in the spirit world. Their only chance for salvation, then, lies in using their genocide to deprive the gods of access to their world, and thus their souls. 144,000 lives extant is the goal, and there are millions to go. I bring this up, 1, because it's cool, and 2, because it illustrates something I truly find lamentable about the logic of Pascal's wager. Fear of hell, of damnation, eternal torment, and every other possible infinite punishment dreamt of in the fevered minds of zealotry is a force that can only motivate selfish action. I alluded to this in my last video already, where I questioned if self-interested, rational cost-benefit analysis can truly lead to the kind of self-submission before a divine force that religion tends to require. When you hear about the possibility of infinite pain you may suffer in damnation, your heart quickens, your mind races, your breath becomes slightly shallow, and all of these may happen even imperceptibly. This is what notoriously sends you into fight or flight mode, which is a heavily instinctual, survival-based, and fundamentally individualistic mode of subjectivity. It tends to reinforce the ego's borders while simultaneously turning off the ego's critical thinking. When a distinct and powerful fear of hell is what motivates your religion's conversion and sustenance, the propensity for the new religiosity to develop into an extreme form is increased. This can be seen with religious extremism, where damnation and hell and God's hatred abounds in their rhetoric. Fire and brimstone is a term with a negative connotation for a reason, but it's still used because it's extremely potent, however dangerously so. This can easily be seen if you conceive of a slightly amended version of Pascal's wager, where the choice is between being more rigid and extreme in your faith to ensure your own salvation, or staying more moderate. The fear of hell will motivate being more extreme every single time. It's practically unavoidable. Ultimately, I hope with this video really to dismantle Pascal's wager at its core, and to try and reinforce a more positive, experiential religious conversion approach, rather than one based on highly flawed reason and flight from pain. Why not focus on the positive seeming aspects of the religion rather than the negatives? If you find yourself compelled to religion, or to the spiritual or mystic, let it be out of love or awe or wonder, not out of fear of a cosmic autocrat. Thank you for watching my second video on Pascal's wager. I really hope you enjoyed it, learned something interesting, and maybe thought even a little bit. My last video got a great reaction with much debate in the comments, and I hope to see more of that this time around. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you're so inclined. I hope to make more videos like this soon. Bye.